I'd like to introduce your facilitators for today. So we have Caroline, who is going to be co-facilitating with myself, Kim. And then we have Shannon Whalen, who is here from CRCPD, who helps us to be our background tech folks. And sometime throughout our presentation, we will meet Al Chapman, who is also part of the Alberta Mentoring Partnership. So today I'd like to acknowledge that the Alberta Mentoring Partnership acknowledges that we work and support mentoring for youth on treaties 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10 territories, and the 8 Métis settlements within Alberta. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis and Inuit, whose footsteps have marked these lands for generations, including the many places that you are joining from. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We recognize the land as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on or are visiting. I'd like to acknowledge that I am joining you virtually today from my home in Slave Lake, which is in Treaty 8 territory. And with that, Caroline, we should probably turn it over to the group to introduce themselves. So if you would like to introduce yourself and let us know where you're from in the province and what organization you work for, that would be wonderful. Let's start with Chris.
Hi there, my name's Chris, and I'm from Jasper, and I work with settlement services in Jasper here with the municipality, and I do a youth peer support program.
Great to see you again, Chris.
Thanks.
Gerline, did I say it right? Oh, you're on mute.
I always do that. Can you hear me now? Awesome. Hi, I'm Gerline. I'm the executive director of the Dollar Detectives, which is a youth financial literacy program. And we're looking at learning more about informal mentoring. And I'm here in Calgary, Alberta.
Welcome. And Sarah. Or sorry, Sandra.
Hi, good afternoon. I am with the Skill City Institute.
Wonderful. You're joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Turgeon. Wendy?
Hi, I'm with the Grand Prairie Public School Division. I'm the Indigenous Programming Coordinator.
Welcome. And I've seen you at our other sessions too, Wendy, so welcome back. If there's anybody else that I didn't get to, please feel free to unmute. And
Al to introduce himself.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Caroline. Sorry I was late coming out of another meeting. So I'm Al Chapman. I'm just started as the lead for projects and governance with AMP. So I'm one of the new team members.
Perfect. So before we go on to, well,
hi, sorry. I'm Lisa Turgeon. I'm from Brooks, and I'm actually an EA assistant.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
From Brooks, Alberta. So we
Yeah,
got some Southerners with us today.
yeah.
Before we go on to our next piece, I just want you to take a minute to think about the people that support you currently. So who would you consider to be your webs of support? And then just jot those names down because we're going to come back to them in a little bit. So who are the people that support you currently and you would consider your web of support? Perfect. Okay. Caroline, do you want to, are you good to share or do you want me to try sharing again?
Oh, I can share. I say confidently. Okay. All righty. All right. So today we're really going to focus on the idea of informal mentoring and natural supports. So the research shows that the most common factor for resilient children is at least one stable and supportive relationship with a caregiver or other dedicated adult. And it does talk about the way that not only do these connections improve well-being for children, but they also provide a mechanism for caregivers, teachers, coaches to better support children and youth. And we know that there's that idea that if we're giving back, it also benefits our own mental well-being. And when we talk about other dedicated adults, the research also shows that the same is true when it's an older teen. So it doesn't always have to be what we might consider an adult. It could also be support from an older teen. So when we talk about teen mentoring, whether formal or informal, it would also be a factor in developing resiliency, supporting resiliency. So for those of you who might be new to the AMP, just a little bit about the organization. So it's a partnership of government ministries, government funded organizations, schools, community agencies, really working to provide more mentoring opportunities for children and youth in Alberta. And it's primarily funded through Alberta Children's Services and Alberta Education. And so the vision and mission here is really about people thrive through mentoring relationships. And again, when you see the word mentoring on the screen and in our materials, we really are referring to all kinds of mentoring, not just the kind of one-on-one mentoring that you might think about when you hear that term. So mentoring is really on a continuum. So at the one end, we have the formal mentoring that probably comes to mind most often when we hear that word. And then if we move left down the continuum, we have lots of different kinds of informal mentoring. And then at the far left, the idea of natural supports. So for today, we're going to mostly focus, or we will be focusing on the informal and the natural supports. So just a little bit about formal mentoring. So usually when we refer to this term, we're looking at one-to-one mentoring. It's usually quite structured. So meetings are set up once a week. Often the mentor and the mentee don't meet outside of that time. It depends if it's an in-school kind of meeting or community. There's often specific objectives involved. It's usually supported through a mentoring organization, and it can take place in the community or in the school. So that's, how we would most often define formal mentoring.
So when we ask the question, what is informal mentoring? What comes to mind? So just take a few minutes to jot any words or phrases that come to mind, and then we'll do a group share. Okay, who would like to share with us their thoughts around what they think about when they hear the term informal mentoring? Just feel free to throw it in the chat, or we're a small enough group so you can just unmute and share.
I think it would, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Chris.
I would think more about just more of a casual type peer, or like a support, as opposed to something structured. So more about just being there for somebody else, as opposed to having a guide, like a strict guideline to follow.
Thanks, Chris. Gerline?
Yeah, I was going to say similar. For some reason, I think it might be more, it could be more youth-led as well. Not sure, but whenever they needed, they would just reach out.
I was thinking maybe someone like someone you build a bond with, a type of friendship. Does that make sense?
Very much makes sense, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Lisa. Anybody else? Wendy, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's more of a casual relationship in which where one person supports the other one either physically or verbally, and to kind of models appropriate skills that the I don't know, mentoree would benefit from.
Wonderful. Thanks for that. Unstructured and impromptu in the chat box. Excellent. Okay. Take it away, Caroline.
There we go. Your ideas really kind of are captured in what kind of research and literature says about natural mentoring. So more of a natural relationship between the mentor, if that's what we want to call them, and the mentee, or the child and youth. It's more like a friendship. It's less structured, and it may turn into a long-term relationship. So in a lot of the formal mentoring, it's time definite. In these kinds of informal mentoring, it can last, it can last over many years. And when it doesn't, it sort of has a natural end point, not a structured, the school year's over, so we're done kind of thing. We're going to talk in a minute about kind of different examples. One of the things we wanted to do with today was to share some just some resources and some websites and things with you. So people may be already familiar with the Search Institute. They've done a lot of work around the 40 developmental assets. But in the last number of years, they've been doing lots of work around developmental relationships. And so in their website, they have a section on developmental relationships, and they really look at how can we take the relationships we have with young people and really strengthen them and increase kind of the likelihood of the impact that we're going to have on them. So they've developed this framework, which they've got a lot of resources that you can download. But basically, when they look at developmental relationships, they look at it in these 5 different areas. So the idea of expressing care, challenging growth, providing support, sharing power, and expanding possibilities. So while these hold true for a formal mentoring relationship, we can always think about them in respect of the more informal relationships that we might have with children and youth in our lives. So I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but there are some really great resources on this website that are free to download and use.
I'm just curious, has anybody heard of the Search Institute? You can just give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Okay.
They also offer workshops around the developmental relationships as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, they have a section on their website about upcoming workshops. So
that'll give you something to do the next day that it's really, really cold. I don't know where you guys, what the weather's like where you're at, but it's quite chilly here in Slave Lake. It was -33 this morning. So flipping through a website to find resources would have been better than trying to get my dog to go outside. We're going to take the opportunity to share the wisdom in the room. And if we had more folks, we would separate you into different breakout rooms, but we're going to just do this as one great big conversation together. So feel free to unmute yourself and then just share out. So what we want you to do is we're going to talk about what does informal mentoring look like in your school or your organization. So you guys have already kind of talked about when you think about informal mentoring, these things come to mind. So natural relationships, more friendships, less structured. So let's talk about what is that looking like in your current reality right now.
Mine is not really that unstructured right now, being that it's just starting out the program. And in order for us to be allowed into the schools, we need to have a structure to our program so that it operates as a program. So we're doing a lunchtime peer support, like mentorship program. It's pretty casual because it's youth, right? So we want to keep it casual and informal. So we play a lot of relationship building games, and we get the kids involved in things together that build the strength of their relationships. But it's pretty informal, yet somehow structured, because we have to keep it that way for the school.
Thanks for sharing that, Chris. And with Jasper being such a small community, do you find that you run into these kids that join you during your peer support time outside of the school?
Absolutely. I see a lot of these same kids for probably 3 of the programs that I run. And then a couple of the kids live like 3 houses down from where I live. So we see them as we pass their house every day. There's a lot of friendly waves and, talk as we shovel our sidewalks. So we do have that informal side as well, which is really nice.
Yeah, so you kind of have the formal piece within the school, but then because the kids recognize you, you can do that informal kind of connecting outside of the school hours. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Wow. Anybody else like to share what's going on in their current world? I don't want to put you on the spot, Lisa, but I know as having worked in school for many, many years, having educational assistants, they often create and just establish lots of informal relationships with kids. If you're on supervision or
Oh, for sure. And I find like I ran the distance ADLC program last year. I'd been running it for the last 6 years in our school, and just from that experience, the amount of relationships I built with kids, I found a lot of time too, my room was kind of a safe room for kids to come and chat or kind of just relax. And so, yeah, for sure. I've built tons of relationships, I think, just through what I did with there, and just communicating with kids on supervision as well. Just, I've always said I feel like teaching is all about respect. If you can get down to their level and have that level of respect, they'll respect you back. And we have a lot of, obviously multiculturalism in Brooks. So it's really interesting to see the different cultures interact, and it's great. I think that's why I love my job so much. It's all about the kids.
I always find it interesting to watch the kids who gravitate. They always come when you're outside at recess or at lunch. The kids who always come back to walk with you, even if they're from a different grade, right? And I really think about how they may not be thinking about you as an informal mentor, but in some ways, they're wanting to maintain that connection for whatever reason. So I always think it's interesting to see which of the little people or big people keep seeking you out.
Wendy, Charlene, Sandra, any other thoughts around what's happening in your organizations?
Hello. For us, I think we're more on the informal, just because we're not in the school. So we're more community-based organization. So a lot of community activities, doing fun things with the kids. But we do have our structured program per se, but because, well, we're a private, not-for-profit, we can deliver that how we see fit. And so, yeah, more on the informal.
So can you give us some examples of things that you guys are doing out in your community?
So, it's all about life skills and finances with our program. So we would do things like go grocery shopping. We would do things like cooking class together, or go visit a bank together, or it could be just relationship building and playing tennis at the community center or whatever, right? So a variety of different activities. We try and make it fun, because finances is not exactly fun a lot of times for kids. So we try and build that fun in by the activities.
Welcome to, I believe it's Steph or Stephanie. We're just sharing what does informal mentoring look like in your school or your organization. So I'll just, we're just going to do a group share here. So you don't have to, I don't want to put you on the spot. I just wanted to welcome you. And we just had a couple of folks share what it looks like. So Chris is in Jasper, and he's talking about they have a lunchtime peer support group, but when he gets out into his community, because it's so small, he does see those kids in an informal way. And then Lisa is in Brooks, and she's an EA, and she talked about how being the distance learning room, she was able to create lots of safe, welcoming environments for the kids to come and chat with her. And then Gerline, just as you popped in, was sharing about how her organization focuses really on the finances and the life skills kind of pieces. So it just kind of gets you up to speed. Anybody else? Stephanie, do you want to share? Oh, sorry, Sandra, go ahead.
Okay, so in Skill City, the program I work with, STEM Hero Plus, it is basically online. So we are hardly met one-on-one. We just do everything remotely.
Nice. And are you finding that you're able to have some informal conversations doing it online informally?
Yes, we do.
So what does that look like? Can you give me an idea so I can create a picture in my head?
It'll be
What?
mostly it's just the mentors and mentees interacting with each other through we use the Mentor City platform.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Steph, do you want to share with us where you're from and what organization you work with?
I'm from Edmonton, and I actually, this is new to me. I'm a parent, and my kids are in an elementary school, and I'm just part of the parent council. And we were just kind of looking at ways to sort of encourage parent involvement with their kids and like learning and things like that. And I just sort of came across this because I know when one of my sons was in kindergarten pre-COVID, they did some mentoring within the same school. And now there's a new junior high just built next door. And it's all just been running since COVID. And so I don't think there's anything sort of been created between the two schools. And it seems like it would be a great opportunity to have junior high students working with the elementary school kids. And I just kind of wanted to get more of an idea of how the schools and how, like, as a parent, I would even like sort of encourage that, or even if it's not the junior high kids, even just having like parents mentoring some of the kids to do like reading groups or reading individually or something like that, just to sort of see what organizations have already done and have, because it's not really my area of expertise in any way. So yeah, just trying to get more information.
Perfect. Well, welcome. I'm hoping that you will get some information as we move through our afternoon here. Anybody have any specific resources? We've heard a few come up. Sandra, you talked about using the Mentor City platform. Gerline talked about some of the financial resources that she was working with. Any other resources that you're using or websites that you found are useful around continuing or starting informal mentoring? Okay, well, Caroline and I have a couple other resources to share with you as we move through this. For those of you that are seeing a little bit of the informal mentoring happening in your organization, what are you noticing about the impact of it? So Sandra, you talked about that one-to-one mentoring that's happening online. What are you noticing from your mentors or your mentees about those interactions?
I noticed that sometimes because we actually encourage them to reach out to each other and to schedule their own dates on when they would like to have a session, and also agree upon the times when they're not able to meet up, and they should be able to let each other know maybe 24 hours before the time for their session, just to give a heads up. And I say the downside of that is sometimes they miss their sessions. So they have to wait until the next week to make up for it, which kind of like makes them be a week behind, which isn't good. Yeah, that's what I noticed too.
Perfect. Well, thanks for sharing that. Some strengths and some things that need to be worked on. Anybody else noticing some impacts of informal mentoring?
I've noticed that the kids are starting to open up a little bit more, and actually reaching out outside of the group now. So even just random text messages and phone calls, and stopping by other programs to just pop in and say hi. So I think that is one positive that I'm noticing.
That's great to hear, Chris, that they're, because I do know that you guys offer a lot of great programming. in the Jasper area. So it's nice that they were feeling comfortable enough to join you in those programs. Caroline, did you want to share some of the other informal mentoring pieces that that we came up with when we were brainstorming this?
There we go. These are some of the, not an exhaustive list, but a list of some ways that we see informal mentoring happening. And really, the focus AMP has, in the last couple of years, is focusing more on this idea of informal mentoring, partly because we know that there will never be enough one-on-one mentors for every child or youth who could use one. So this idea about informal mentoring and how do we help or how do we support adults and older teens that are in our younger people's lives to really think about how to enhance that relationship that they have and make it really impactful. So in a lot of schools, and I think Stephanie, you might have been mentioning this, a lot of schools have things like reading buddies. So they'll have older students reading to younger students. And if they have, when we talk about strengthening those relationships to have more of an impact, if those partners are kept together longer, then of course that relationship strengthens. Also, if there's a little bit of relationship building time built into that reading piece, so maybe the older students have a question that they're going to ask the younger student at the beginning of their time together and share something about themselves, or if you could have any pet, what kind of pet would you like, or just some relationship building activities as well as the reading. You notice the stronger impact of those relationships, and you'll see it spreading out beyond that time that they're together in the classes. So that's kind of one example. Cross-graded activities, again, in some schools, or even in clubs outside of school, you might have a group of kids from different ages working together on something. And again, that's a great way to have the older students work with the younger students in a little bit of a leadership capacity and develop relationships maybe across the club or across the school. So just another example of that. And that could be junior high students working with elementary students, or high school students working with elementary or junior high students. Or again, in outside clubs, just the older club members working with the younger ones. And that kind of, that's one of the pieces around transition mentors. So that's sort of a cross-graded activity with a specific goal. So what's happening pre-COVID, when you could have kids from outside certain cohorts spending time together, some schools were looking at those transition years. So let's say you've got a K-6 school, and then the students are transitioning to junior high of 7 to 9. What some schools were doing were they were pairing grade 8 students with grade 6 students. So starting that relationship before the students move to junior high, with the idea of easing that transition, so that when those grade 6 students get to junior high, it's not quite so scary. And now their mentor will be in grade 9, so they'll know a cool grade 9 student when they start. So that's one type of mentoring that's been happening. And similarly with pairing grade 11 students with grade 9 students, or whatever that looks like, but always pairing with a grade that's still going to be there when the younger students start at that school. So there's been some really positive impact around that, and especially with some kids about their fears of going to junior high. And also a lot of those relationships are continuing through that next year of school. And you'll see them having lunch together periodically and those kinds of things.
And I'm like, well.
And then sports coaching as well. So whether that's in school or outside of school, we know that coaches often are a really important person in young people's lives. And so through those sports and coachings, whether it's the actual adult coaches, or maybe it's again the older team members, working with the younger team members, all really great examples and opportunities for informal mentoring. And then same thing with clubs, all kinds of different clubs, whether we're talking about boys and girls clubs activities or things like 4-H or junior achievement or any of the other kind of clubs that exist in communities are, again, great opportunities for some informal mentoring to take place and for those adults and older youth to have an impact on our younger kids.
Caroline, one year at the school that I was at, it was a K-3 school, and we had a club day once a month. And we basically, teachers decided what focus area they were really interested in. So we had teachers who were interested in sewing, some that liked dance, some that, liked hockey. And so then kids that had those similar interests would go to their room that for 45 minutes once a month. And it was cross-graded, so kindergarten to grade 3 students going. And what we noticed over time was that the kids were talking about their interests in these areas that weren't really a formal kind of thing, but you would see them sharing things out at recess time or talking about it in the morning. And sometimes the kids were developing relationships with the teachers on a more regular basis when they were out on supervision, because if it was a kindergarten teacher, they often didn't interact much with the grade 3 students, but grade 3 students would be coming down to their room to share. So we saw a lot of informal stuff happening and a lot of stronger relationships being built there.
Thanks, Kim. I think another one we didn't talk about, and it can be more formal, but often it's quite informal, is there's really a growing field of intergenerational mentoring. So the idea of seniors and younger students or younger people, and sometimes that is a little bit more structured, but I know an elementary school that has a group of seniors that comes in once a week, and they almost have mini clubs going in the same classroom. So based on what the seniors' interest is, they do some work with groups of kids. So there's one woman who is teaching kids how to knit. So she's got a little group that come and knit with her. There's another gentleman who is kind of a science guy. So they do little science experiments. So other ways of just bringing more adults into kids' lives. And we know that often kids don't have grandparents close by. So it's sort of filling that gap for our students, but also really giving some of these seniors a sense of purpose. And especially during COVID, when they moved to being virtual, and a lot of the seniors said how much they look forward to this time because they've been pretty cooped up. So another example of informal mentoring. And then kind of somewhere in between informal and natural supports is this idea about webs of support. So I don't know, Kim, if you want to talk about your beautiful picture and then webs of support.
So this picture was taken one lovely fall day as I was driving from Edmonton into Slave Lake. And if you haven't heard Derek Peterson talk about the Roy G. Biv, his napkin conversation. So he talks about supporting adolescents and youth in full color, and he uses the different colors of the rainbow. So he talks about what the R stands for, what the O stands for, and for our topic today, we're going to just focus on the red, which is explaining the rule of 5 that he has. So at the beginning, Caroline talked about the research that talked about having one caring individual in each student's life. And what Derek is trying to tell us is that it's great to have that one person there until that person's no longer there. And so it's kind of hard to create a web. But if you have 5 connectors in your life or in the youth's life, it connects them to more people. So if one person's not available, they can go to person number 2. And the people in their lives can be coaches, teachers, bus drivers, the person at the grocery store that they see most often. And these people help to support the child or the youth in whatever way that they need at that moment of time. He also goes on to explain that as adults who are supporting youth, we also need our own webs of support. So we need to have 5 caring individuals in our life to help to support us. So I want you to kind of go back and think about those folks that you jotted down. Who were your webs of support at the beginning of this webinar? Take a look at that list now. And then if you were to think about some of the folks that were supporting you as you were a child or a youth growing up, how have your supports changed over time? Do you have more now or less now? Do you have different people supporting you, or do you have those same types of supports? Are those same people that supported you in your youth still supporting you now? And this is more of a reflection activity. You don't need to share if you don't want to, but if you'd like to share, we'd certainly welcome you to share that information with us. I know for me, I have an aunt who was there growing up when I was growing up, and she was my mom's closest sister. So my mom has 5 other siblings, and she had 3 boys and no girls, and she just wanted to have a girl. So I became her pseudo daughter. And so she was always the one that was teaching me how to, curl my hair or do my makeup and do all of those pieces, which is kind of funny because I really just wanted to hang out with the boys and run around and go bike riding. And I really wasn't interested in makeup or clothes or any of the girly kind of things that she wanted to. But she's still in my life today, and she still offers me all sorts of advice around anything that is what I would consider domestic. So if and my mom's there too, but we just have a very different relationship with my aunt. She can laugh that I still struggle to cook a turkey and those kind of pieces. So. Caroline, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I had the opportunity to spend 4 days with Derek, which was really amazing. And he took us through the same activity. And I remember at the end of thinking about who were my anchors when I was younger, I actually was feeling a little, I don't know, depressed, because I realized I didn't really have that many. Although at the time growing up, I didn't really think that, I was missing out. But then it was interesting to see how that I had grown my web as I got older and moved away from home, and and now as an adult, I would consider myself to be quite thickly webbed. So it was just a really interesting activity to look back and see who those people were. I had some really great people in my life when I was young, but not 5. When he was talking about 5 anchors, and he gets you to narrow it down. So, but now I would say, I have definitely more than 5 in my life. So it's not, things change over time, which I think is important as well when we think about those webs.
Just curious if anybody that's with us today got to see Derek at the AMP Summit in October, or just recently November 30th. Just you can throw a thumbs up if you had a chance, or in the chat box. So Derek Peterson often talks about his napkin talk. So if you Google Derek Peterson and napkin talk, you'll get his little video around that.
A couple of people, it looks like, were able to see him, so that's great.
Nice.
Good. So at the other end of the continuum is that idea of natural supports. So they can be kind of more formal, informal, they're reciprocal relationships and associations. So again, they can mitigate negative influences and events like adverse childhood experiences through skill development, companionship, and role modeling. But these really happen, as the term implies, naturally. So these are often people who are already in somebody's life, in their community. And we'll talk a little bit more about some research that was done by Connections First, but it's really about almost strengthening that idea of community and how do we come together to support each other. And I don't know if anybody that lives in Edmonton is aware of the Abundant Communities initiative, but that's sort of the premise of that as well, is that it's almost bringing neighborhoods back together like we probably remember them years and years and years ago, where people did know their neighbors and people looked out for each other. And you know, if you were a kid in the neighborhood and you were out playing and you were doing something wrong, your neighbor would say something, or perhaps even phone your parents. So this idea of natural supports is kind of getting at that piece about who do we interact with on a regular basis, and how do we just as a community support each other. No, did you have anything to add there, Kim?
No, I'm just excited because you talked about the website Connections First, and it has some great little resources that we're going to walk you through. So if you're here to look for some more resources to help you out, we're going to share this website and kind of show you a few things with it. And I'll throw the link into the chat.
Yeah. So Connections First actually started out, it was an initiative started in Calgary, and it was funded through the Max Bell and the Burns Foundation. So they really wanted to look at this idea of natural supports. So, you know, they've got a definition, they did lots of research. It was a time definite project, so it's officially finished now, but the one of the foundations is maintaining this website and continuing to add to it. So it won't go away, and there will still be lots of great information on here. So under the projects, you can find summaries and findings of the work that they've done. They did a couple of really cool projects. And in the guides, they have more resources in the naturally supportive communities resource, but also this really cool concept of social snacking. So social snacking is this idea, there's this little poster here about, are you a social snacker? And it's really about those brief interactions that you have on a daily basis and how we can enhance those and really have an impact on our sense of belonging and happiness just by those little interactions. So, you know, one example is if you stop at the same place for coffee on a regular basis and the person who serves you gets to know your name and your order, maybe asks you a question, that's social snacking. If you start up a conversation with your bank teller, if you go to the real bank anymore, or in a grocery store, again, if you're not getting them delivered, but just those quick little interactions and just smiling and saying something releases positive chemicals in your body and brain and makes your day a little bit better. So there's information on the website about that. So there's this poster that you can use. There's a toolkit now with different things in there. And I think Kim and I have talked about how cool would this be in schools to share this social snacking out, and maybe, you know, maybe starting with the older students or leadership students and getting them involved in being social snackers. Or even, you know, adults in clubs, those kinds of things, and just seeing the difference that it makes and if they notice a difference.
The one piece that I thought was really kind of interesting on here is they have a social snacking TikTok at the bottom. And so if you go there, there's like little 30-second clips about what it is. And as Caroline was saying, when you think about what it could look like in your organization, in your community, or in your school, you know, if you were to share one of these little TikTok videos and then just have a conversation about, you know, how could you use this to introduce this concept to people that are around you? You know, I showed it to my son, he's 20, and you know, we kind of talked about the little TikTok pieces. And then I said, so, you know, how do you see this working, you know, in your life? And he goes, well, I don't know. So we kind of did a family challenge, you know, and we said, okay, for the next 3 days, let's just see, you know, the different types of ways that we could do a social snacking, you know. And then we came back and we kind of talked about it a little bit. So he works at Tim Hortons as a part-time job. And he is like, oh, well, I see people that I know all the time. So you know, I would be asking them, you know, oh, it must be a rough day at work today because you're here at lunchtime for coffee, but you were here this morning. And so, and he says now that he started to do that, he's actually gotten to know their names, and he's gotten to know a little bit more about them. So, and just a neat little social experiment in our family.
I know in Calgary, they've been doing a lot of work with the public libraries. And so the public library staff, you know, kind of has a social snacking challenge. And so they're using it with the clients that come in and out of the library. And they're talking about the difference that it makes in those relationships between the library staff and some of the people that are coming in and out or in on a regular basis. So
I'm interested to hear from the group. What do you think about this concept of social snacking and how it could be used in your world?
I love it. My background is hospitality. I was a hotel manager for about 15 years before I got into this line of work. So it's actually something that I used to have with my staff, right? It was teaching them to do these types of things, and I never thought about doing it in this type of setting. So that's actually really, really awesome, and I want to do that with the kids.
I keep thinking that in February we have Random Acts of Kindness Week, and this might be a cool, you know, concept to introduce during Random Acts of Kindness Week, and then just keep it going from there.
Kim McConnell, did you work at the Tonquin Inn years ago? Yes, I did.
Okay, I don't know if you guys saw me, but I went, I remember, Chris. And if we want to talk social snacking, that is exactly kind of how we got to know each other over the years. My family stayed there. My son was little, I think 5 or 6 at that time. And, you know, Chris would always share with us whenever we go to check in all the neat things that were happening in and around Jasper. And yeah, we ended up creating a informal friendship over the years. So
Human
good to see you
foosball.
again.
Human foosball, Kim, wasn't it?
Yes, human foosball. So we'll have to catch up again over Christmas.
Absolutely.
And just, oh, I was just going to say, they also have some lots of different downloads. So some social snacking downloads. There's some little kind of posters and info sheets about the whole natural supports idea and concept. So again, there's lots on this website that you may want to check out.
Welcome, Veronica.
Oh, how do I get there?
Do we want to carry on to the AMP website tour? Okay.
We're going to provide you with a bunch of resources so that you guys can have some time to dig through and find some things that would help yourself or your organization or your school.
So if we go onto the website, and actually there's some work being done on the website right now. So in a little while, it might look different, but but hopefully it'll be easier to find things, not harder. So just a couple of pieces that we wanted to point out to you was, let's go to this get involved piece. So if you're interested, if your organization is not already a partner, and I know that some of you are, and are interested in becoming a partner, you can just go to this little tab, and it's got a really easy form for you to fill out. And then you can be a partner of AMP. And some of the benefits of that are being able to, you get a little package that you can use, you know, if you want to put AMP's logo on your website. Also, if you're an organization that is looking for volunteers, you can use that to say that you would like that. And then during things like Mentor Month, which is coming up in January, you'll be able to get some mentors sent your way. So that's one of the pieces. I think we got kicked off here. So let's see if I can get back in. I've got all these little weird things coming up that I don't know if you can see, but they're very annoying. So that's where you would go for that. On the flip side, if you are not interested in becoming a partner, but you want to find out what's happening with AMP, you can go over here under blog, and there's a subscribe to our mailing list tab. So you can sign up for the mailing list, and you get newsletters with articles about mentoring, formal and informal research, upcoming webinars. So that's another option. And then under resources. So here you'll see mentorship training. So if you didn't already know this, AMP offers training for mentors, formal or informal, about kind of what does it mean to be a mentor, and a whole bunch of different pieces of that, what to expect, you know, kind of the boundary piece, a little bit on the brain and why mentoring is good for, you know, children and youth and all of those things. So it's free. You just have to sign up, and you can get into the little kind of, it's online video type training. It takes about an hour, but you can stop and then come back to it and start again, so you don't lose it if you do that. So there's also one for mentees there. And then there's, I'll just go down here to the mentoring. There's mentoring resources that are more general kinds of resources. So here's a few of them. TOOLKIT for sexual and gender diverse youth mentoring, creating a quality community-based mentoring, Indigenous children and youth. So a lot of different ones here. And again, some of it is designed to create a more formal mentoring, but a lot of the information in there is really helpful just for those informal mentoring situations as well. And then if we go into the mentoring in schools resources, you'll find lots of different resources that you can download about building mentoring relationships in schools, high school teen mentoring, the teen mentoring toolkit. If the school is interested in the career and technology studies courses, there's information there. So all of these are available for download. We also have lots of print copies. So if people want to have a print copy sent to them, or print copies, that's another option. And then one more thing on here around our resources for schools. So we have, and some of you I think have participated in these, a teen mentoring in schools collaborative community network. So we've been hosting a series of webinars, some standalones like today, some that are kind of a series. And so they're on this page. You can see what's happening here. There's also the recordings of the summit sessions. So if you weren't able to attend but are interested in hearing some of those, they're available there. And then here are the dates. This is where you'll find the dates of the different workshops and webinars. And there's some more down here on the standalone ones. So I don't know, Kim, if you wanted to jump in and say anything about all the resources.
No, it seems like it's really overwhelming at first, but the way that it's laid out, because I just started in September. You know, I kind of went with what am I interested in first, and then I just plunked that out. And all the resources are laid out really well, and we have a slide with our contact information. So feel free to reach out and ask us at any time, and we can kind of help to direct you. We have created quite a nice little community here. So Chris and Wendy, we've seen each other at some different sessions over the course of this year. And so we just invite you to, you know, to come back, to sign up for some of these sessions. And if you're not already aware, we record our sessions. So if you're not available at that time, as long as you're registered, we can send you the link, and then you can kind of catch up and see kind of what's out there for you.
And just a note about the series, if you haven't been attending and you want to attend, you can. It's not a series where you have to, you know, come to the first one before you can come to any of the others. So regardless if you've been to ones before, you can sign up for any of the upcoming ones. I know that's a lot. Are there any questions about the website or the resources?
It's a quiet group tonight. That's okay. I think if you click to the next slide.
Yep. Hang on. Just have to move my people here because they're blocking my click function.
Looks like Wendy's been in there and used some of the resources and said that they're extremely helpful. So yeah, if you, sorry, to the next slide, because you just,
there we go.
There's a kind of a clearer outline. So we have something almost every month, if you take a look. So we have a provincial webinar in January, and then we have a standalone. We're going to have linkages come and talk to us about intergenerational mentoring in schools. And then April, we'll have another provincial cohort webinar. And then in May, we're going to be talking at the beginning about planning your own mentoring initiative. So that would be more that formalized, but we could even talk about what the informal piece looks like within your school initiative. So we can take a look at either, whether it's formal or informal. And then if you take a look at the wrap-up cohorts, we're hoping that by May and June, we'll be able to meet in person, and we'll be able to, again, share the wealth and the knowledge that's in the room, and talk about your initiatives and how we can further help you along your mentoring journey.
And our provincial webinars don't have topics next to them because it's really the participants here in these webinars that drive our content for the upcoming webinars. So we really appreciate your feedback that you give us, and any ideas or suggestions that you have or information that you would like. Please feel free to share that with us, because that's how we kind of come up with what we're going to do at the next one. Oh, I think you're muted, Kim.
Good segue into that. So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to fill out our survey so that we can use your feedback to help with our project as we're moving forward. I've put the link in the chat box, or you can use the QR code. So I'm going to give you about 3-4 minutes to fill it out. We'll just listen to some music. If you want, you can turn your camera off if that makes you feel more comfortable. So I know that some of you have filled out our other surveys, and that's kind of what's been driving our standalone sessions. So please know that we really do value your feedback. Forgot to mention that we have one more activity to do after we're done our survey.
Start selling online with Shopify, the e-commerce platform that's trusted by over 1 million businesses worldwide. Build your online store without any coding or design experience. Reach more.
Give another 15 seconds and then we'll wrap up with our final activity for tonight. Okay, for our final activity, for our time together today, it's going to be a little bit of a reflection, but a little bit of an action statement along with it. So I want you to take a minute to think about what action you will take after hearing the information on informal mentoring. So you're going to start your statement with I am, I will, or I believe, and then finish it off with whatever your action statement will be around informal mentoring. When you have your thought and your action statement, just unmute yourself and share with the group.
Hi, it's Gerline. I will do a little bit more research on the social snacking idea, only because I feel like it would be very helpful for kids, for the youth in regards to, it's not as, especially the ones who have a little bit of a social phobia, social anxiety. It's a great way to just say it could be a quick few seconds. So I really want to research that a bit more.
Thank you for sharing.
I think I like the idea of the social snacking as well. I work in a high school from grades 10 to 12. So I think it would be great to explore that a little bit more with the high school students anyway.
So much, Lisa. Like I said, my son was all over it. It was something that he felt he could do. It was within his locus of control.
I will also be bringing the social snacking into our peer mentoring group for the youth.
Thanks for that, Chris. Anyone else? Well, I believe, oh, Wendy, go for it.
Yes, hi. I'm going to be discussing with our high school principals the availability of getting a mentorship program started in both, actually, at least 2 high schools, preferably 3, for the new year.
Wonderful. Remind me again where you're located, Wendy?
I'm with the Grand Prairie Public School Division.
Grand Prairie. Okay.
Yes, and we have 2 high schools as well as an outreach high school where we have students registered and learning.
Nice. Wonderful.
Just a reminder for the social snackers that on that Connections First website in the toolkit, you can download posters, there's bookmarks, there's a whole bunch of different pieces that you could download and print and use them in your activities or as you introduce that concept to people in your groups or organizations.
Wonderful. So on the slide here, you can see our contact information. So there's my information, Caroline's information, Al Chapman, we met at the beginning, and then Andrew Harris is our tech guru. So if you're signing up for the newsletter or you're on the website and things just aren't working out well, or you're having problems there, you can connect up with Andy and he'll help you out. And that is our time together. We're done a little bit early, so we're giving you the gift of time tonight. But Caroline and I will hang around if you have any questions. Feel free to stay on and chat with us. Otherwise, we hope to see you at our next event, which will be in January.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful evening.
Yes, thank you. It was very informative.